Oh my gosh, hi. I didn't realize that was you. I'm so happy you're joining.
It's okay. I look a little rough. I've been doing homework, so I'm like so happy to not be doing homework right now.
I got you. I'm here to distract you from homework.
Yes, please.
I'm trying to figure. Oh, there we go. I was trying to figure out how to green screen a TikTok live. Okay, there we go. Bam.
I've only ever gone live one time, and it was like so awkward because it's just me talking. So I was like, I'm never doing this again. It's the worst.
I've got 2 book talkers in here. I love that.
That's awesome.
Hey.
Hello. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm so tired.
Oh no. Hey Nathan, I'm so glad you could come.
Hey Nathan.
Hey, I can only stay for maybe a half hour or so, just with some family stuff going on, but just wanted to pop in at least.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
I have no idea why I'm so yellow.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm just happy my web camera's working. Oh gosh. No, it's okay. Yeah. Hi Ben. Hello. So good to see you. It's been forever. If it cuts out, I'm running into internet issues, of course. So if there's an issue, I will stop. How's everybody doing? Is everybody good? Okay. Anybody snowed in? What's happening? How's life? I don't know where everybody is in the world. I am so unorganized. I've been sitting here for 45 minutes and I'm still unorganized.
It's miserably rainy in Seattle.
Oh, well.
So.
That seems like the thing. I don't know.
Seattle. Yeah.
We're pretty snowed in over here in Wisconsin. So.
Oh yeah,
okay. Wisconsin. Where are you? But you have good cheese.
We do, and beer, so we're kept busy inside.
Good cheese and beer makes the snow feel better.
Yeah, I'm in Wisconsin too. So.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Well, I'll go ahead and get it started. Why not? Welcome. Hi, some new faces in here. I'm so happy to have you guys. Welcome to the Morbidly Curious Book Club. It's so fun. I am still going to be admitting people as we go. Hello. Okay, cool. So again, first off, thank you so much for being here. I'm so grateful. This has like become a little passion project, my little child. So I'm forever grateful. This book we read, Cultish, and I know some people have read this previously and were just wanting to kind of tell us their thoughts about it. It's a fascinating little book. Of course, in the Zoom meeting I'm also live on TikTok. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You don't have to say anything. You could sit there with your finger up your nose and I won't care. But I really appreciate your attendance. So we can just kind of go around, and since there's a couple people in here now, if you don't mind doing the classroom, like raise your hand if you want to talk, just so we're not like on top of each other. And kind of go around, and I have some just like basic questions, like as far as, book club questions, like overall thoughts of the book. And then if you could ask the author anything, what would it be? So first off, let's just go ahead and say overall thoughts. If you could give it a rating, hello, give it a rating if you want. And just your overall thoughts and what you liked about the book. I had a blast with it, clearly. This is probably the most beat up book that I've ever owned. I've got like quotes on the front cover, which I know is like blasphemous to some people. I devoured this. I waited until today to finish it, so it was kind of fresh. But I really enjoyed it. I have some thoughts, but we'll get to it. So I guess if whoever wants to go first on overall thoughts, we can get into that.
I can go first.
Sure.
I maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I actually did not like this book that much. And that's kind of why I wanted to join the book club to see if anyone else felt similarly. I thought that there were some really amazing like nuggets of information. Like I feel like there were times when the author dug in a lot, but and maybe this was just me, but I felt like her tone was very snarky. And in a way, like she was making fun of the people that she was also writing the book about. And to me, that just like something just like didn't sit right with the tone of it. Like, oh, all these people like got duped into doing this thing, but I would never do that. Like, that's so crazy. So I don't know. I just like, I'd love to hear what other people thought, but that was kind of my, I think like the info is great, but the tone kind of like killed it for me.
Totally understand. I have some similar opinions on that one.
I was just gonna say, I also did not like the book. It got so repetitive for me that I just started reading the first few sentences of each paragraph towards the end of it. I felt like it never went into full detail on certain things that I wanted it to. And I also at times did not like the tone at all. I don't know. I wanted to like it so much and I didn't, and I did finish it. But yeah, but at the same time, there are definitely like books that are mentioned inside this book as a reference. And I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to go try that book out and hope that I get what I need to from those.
You can't really see it because the colors don't show up as well, but the yellow tabs, all the yellow tabs are book recommendations that she gave in this book. I tabbed pretty much every single one of them. Because I agree. I agree.
But I did learn a few new things. So it wasn't a complete waste. I don't regret reading it. I wanted it to be so much more than it was for me.
Yeah. No, I get it. I totally get it. And I'm really happy that we're gonna have different opinions in here. Interestingly enough, I think our lowest rated book, and because after you read the book on our book club's website, you can go in and give it a rating. I think our lowest rated book was The Six Women of Salem, but this is actually the second lowest rated, which was kind of surprising, but interesting. So if we want to keep it going.
I can go next. Yeah, it was one of my favorite books of last year. I didn't reread it for this, but I read it last year and I really loved it. I think what I loved about it was the information was just so presentable. Like it read kind of like a podcast episode, especially with the longer chapters, which at first like annoyed me, but they all seemed like episode length. So you could really like dig into just like a singular thing and then move on to the next one. In a lot of books, I don't like that approach, but I thought this one, the singular focus per chapter was really well. And for me, I really did like the snarky attitude because I think that it's kind of in line with like the modern age of true crime obsession that like we are so hyper aware of these types of things. And then what this book did was just present it in just kind of a newish way, and especially presenting things like the multi-level marketing as, you know, within the true crime world or within the cultish world. I thought that was like just a really like inventive way to talk about these things, because it's things that like it seems almost everyone in society is passionate about. And so finding a way to like critique these things and make it funny and lighthearted, but also like bring up really serious topics. I just thought that was a fun way to read it. And I don't think I would have liked this book quite as much if it would have come from like a sociologist, you know, something that dives really deep into these things. I liked more the surface level stuff.
And not to like put you on blast, Nathan, but you're like our resident nonfiction reader. So I was definitely wanting to hear like your opinion on this too, because if I need any nonfiction recommendations, I go to you on Book Talk. So I was curious kind of to see how this, I guess it's hard to come. I mean, it's like asking, fiction is just like such a wide umbrella. So it's weird kind of asking like a nonfiction opinion on this. Like, how does this level up to other nonfiction books? But I'm kind of getting the vibe that this is going to, I haven't read any Mary Roach, but I'm kind of getting the vibe that this is similar to like a modern, like a Mary Roach type of book. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think you take the way that the information wasn't taken with any reverence for it, like is a very like modern style writing of this subject matter, which I think is just such a great thing. And Mary Roach is part of that, but a lot of the new science writers and even history writers are just not taking the information or the research as academic. This was just fun. It was lighthearted, while still like maintaining a little bit of seriousness and a little bit of like scholarship.
Got it. Totally. Anybody else want to give initial thoughts?
I think Nathan touched on something that I was like struggling with because, and I loved hearing your opinion on it, Nathan, because I'm like from the opposite position. So like I don't read any nonfiction ever except for social science books because I'm a psychology student going to grad school for psychology. So like the reason I struggled with this book was because I wanted the like more deep dive of things and I wanted it to be written from like a psychologist perspective. So like because it was more so geared towards people who didn't kind of want that, I was like struggling with it because I realized part of the way through that like this book isn't for me. It's not for like people who want like a really deep dive into like the psychology of cults. Because like I've taken a college course on cults specifically. So like my expectations needed to be completely different from what they were. So I gave it like 3 stars because I was like, I don't want to be too harsh on it. Like it's not the book's fault. It's my expectations were what it should have been. So it's interesting to hear like the other perspectives of like some people would want kind of the more like fun, less psychology route. And then some people were like wanting more of a deep dive of it. I think it's interesting.
Do you still have notes from your cult's psychology class? Because I will buy them off of you.
I can look tonight.
I just feel like there might have been classes like that available, especially at the school that I went to. I'm sure there were. We had a Quidditch team. Okay, I'm sure there were. But I would have taken them. Why didn't I see anything like that? That's so cool. I love this. I love this discussion. This is amazing. Okay. I'm so giddy. I'm happy. Okay. Does anybody else want to go?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you can go.
I was just gonna say I had really mixed feelings about it, and then it occurred to me somewhere along the line that I was enjoying the book, and it really did. It was not deep, it was pretty easy to read. I enjoyed some sections more than others. Scientology fascinates me, so that was a good read for me. So some sections I enjoyed more than others, but I liked the book okay. And I think what I didn't like was the author. I liked her snarkiness. That didn't bother me. I mean, it was sort of a light reading kind of approach to the subject matter, I think. So I know some of it was intentional and I thought it was funny. But at some point in the book, and I don't remember exactly what it was that I read, I probably marked it in here, but at some point it occurred to me that she was the person she was making fun of. It's like she's biased and she was producing thought terminating cliches. And it ended up making me not like her very much because she never in the book said, yeah, I know I do it too. I'm guilty of it. I did it in this book. She didn't say that. And I just felt like she didn't really have a very realistic view of herself. It was like, it's all these other people. But it really hit me with thought terminating cliches and just bias. I thought she was very biased in some of the things that she said. And there were things in there that didn't really even need to be in there because it was her opinion.
Right. Totally get that.
And so that's really kind of what got me. So I liked it on one hand. On the other hand, I probably wouldn't read anything else she wrote.
That's actually another question I have on the list is, would you read another book by this author? Skylar, did you want to go ahead?
So I mean, I liked it, but I felt like and I listened to it via audiobook because that's the only format I could like get my hands on without buying it. And I don't know, like it just spent so much time on MLMs and being a boss babe and stuff, and that wasn't really what I was interested in. But overall, I think it was good.
I feel like I'm being watched. I definitely am.
My cat does that sometimes too. Well, one of them.
What are you doing, buddy? He's falling asleep is what he's doing. Ralph, did you want to say anything?
I feel like I'm the politician in this, and both sides had merits.
I love it.
I'm sorry.
No, I love it.
But like a lot of what Nathan, you said, and Allison, you said, resonated, and some of the stuff Cindy said, and Skylar said, like, not that anyone else didn't, but like, I found myself nodding my head going, yeah, that's kind of where I was, because I was all over the place in this book. I wanted it to go deeper, and especially into, I think, what we have always traditionally considered cults. And I felt like there just became her attempts to be kind of funny and snarky at times most definitely did come across at times, whether she intended to or not, as like, but I'm never going to fall for that, because I'm so much better than all of these people. And I kind of just, I don't know, I had any space for people like that in my life. And so that was kind of a little bit like, but I did find it really interesting that she went so hard into the MLMs and the and the fitness stuff. It's like, oh yeah, this stuff is just as bad as what Jim Jones did. Totally,
it was aggressive.
It really was. Now, mind you, you have to understand something. I found this, and many of you, via TikTok, and TikTok figured out really early on that I really liked true crime. It's kind of frightening, and also just totally landed down this rabbit hole of anti-MLM stuff at the same time. It was a little weird, but I don't know. It just kind of it's always interesting to me. But man, this book was like quadrupling down on going like, oh yeah, Scientology, yeah, MLMs are just as bad. Oh yeah, it's like, oh, that's just as bad as what Jim Jones did. Oh yeah, well, you guys are a totally Heaven's Gate, and you're gonna go ahead and wear Nike tennis shoes and all die. And I don't know if I could compare that to a "Hey, hun," text message from somebody saying, do you, I'm sorry, it's the whole Huns, it's the whole MLM thing. Yeah. Sorry, I digress. But yeah, it was a little bit weird, but at the same time, I mean, what Nathan said, the book was a ride, and I did really enjoy it. I was just kind of like, it turned some corners at times that I was like, oh, okay, we're going down here, and we think this is just as bad as that. Okay, go on. And yeah, it was interesting. It was I'm probably in the 3-ish stars place with the book. Right. Probably. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I'm getting some comments on TikTok, on the TikTok live. So some people were saying it was a little too anecdotal, and they thought that the MLM stuff was definitely interesting, but they weren't expecting it, which is kind of what we're hearing. But also one of my best friends, Emily, said I'm definitely in the minority here. I thought the MLM CrossFit stuff was the most interesting part. We know how Scientology is a cult, but applying the metric to modern groups was so interesting. And another person agreed. All Smiles said to Emily that she agreed. Yeah, I mean, that was like one of my things too. And I I don't know. I mean, it obviously those type of girls or, boss babes are everywhere where we're getting, messages. I was really looking for some messages that I was getting from people in the past, and I found a few. One of them from Mary Kay. This girl was messaging me nonstop. She was an old friend of mine from college, and I never responded to any of her messages. She was like messaging me on my birthday, like, "Hey, happy birthday, girl. By the way, did you know, like, this product will change your life?" And it's like, okay. I definitely, not to say this is what happened to anybody else, but I had to constantly remind myself what exactly I was reading. Like, of course, based on the book and kind of like what you think you're going into. Like, okay, obviously I know way too much about cults than the average person. This is why I don't get invited anywhere. But I was trying not to like just think, okay, so this book is entirely about cults. I'm going to learn so much. That's not what this is. This is specifically more so about the cultish language, I guess, which obviously, and it's like, I had to keep reminding myself that, like, okay, so we're talking about CrossFit because they're using these same ideologies, I guess, but not in the same way. But it also makes you question, like, okay, did all cults start out bad? Like, it is a rabbit hole. So I'm sure she was just like fascinated by one thing and then just kept digging and was discovering just like so much. But at the same time, I do feel like this book heavily relied on previous knowledge of cults. I do think that people who are interested in the subject should read this book, but not people who are like, okay, I definitely want a book on David Miscavige. That's not gonna, David Miscavige wasn't even mentioned in this book. Scientology was mentioned. David Miscavige was never mentioned. Neither was the gold base. Neither was anything about Scientology. Her story was interesting, which lived in LA for 4 years. I totally see this happening. All right. It's not that I don't believe any of her anecdotes. I'm sure they're real. Can totally see that happening. So I that was my only thing with it for a while. I was kind of in the same boat, like, man, this is just not what I thought it was. But kind of like what Allison was saying, which is, I posted a video about that recently on my book talk about just like, okay, is it the author's fault that my expectations were wrong? Like, why would I give this author a bad rating for their book that they spent years making because I thought it was going to be one thing and not the other, So that was my only thing, is I definitely had to remind myself, okay, this is what we're trying to learn here. And it was fascinating. And I did find the correlations that she was trying to do this with, so I get it. And, as again, lived in LA, I had people trying to get me to join CrossFit. It was super scary, but it was kind of like on the same wavelength as like an MLM too, where they're like, hey, so like really good things can happen if you do this. And I'm like, okay, that's tempting. Okay, you almost have me. Thanks for pointing out that I'm out of shape. I love that. But I get it. So the other question that I had. No, go ahead.
Well, and it's interesting because like there's so many like gyms or like trainers. Like I have a retired cop friend who just opened up his own little gym that's like CrossFit style, but it's not like the brand of like CrossFit. So like, and he's also very like realistic and wants to make sure people are safe and not just, let's do all the things.
Yeah.
So trusting, like,
I didn't know that about CrossFit, that you were like, I mean, not to say that it's just CrossFit, but like encouraged to like puke. Like,
yeah.
Like a badge of honor if you barf.
Yeah. Like Jay, he's very like, he wants you to be safe. He wants you to have like the weightlifting techniques correct, instead of like, we're just gonna rush through this. And then like, if he can see, like I worked out with him yesterday and he was like, instead of making me finish all 5 rounds, you could tell like my body was done. And he's like, okay, we're done. We're like, no more. So I think
which is
like
what's supposed to happen.
yes, but doesn't always happen in other settings. But it is interesting how like things that are like those brand morph and kind of take on their own life.
Right.
Like I think yoga and bar exercises and that a lot of people know and like, but not as quite the way like that they started.
Right. And what was interesting about I've never been like a gym member. I mean, I've gone to the gym. I it's not like a complete foreign, subject to me, but it's interesting that one of the things our author pointed out here was, the idea of that us versus them mentality and creating a family, which is definitely problematic when you think of it in the Jonestown sense or the Branch Davidian sense, or anything that knows, like, that's kind of weird. Or obviously Manson, right? So the family, it's like, okay, this is a little strange. But when it comes to like, I could be totally wrong, but when it comes to the gym, like, I think at one point in the book she was saying there's a lot of we's, like, we could do this, we're a team, we're a family. But I feel like that's almost a good thing as far as like going to the gym is concerned, because you need like inspiration and hype. You know what I mean? So at a point there, I was like, maybe the language here isn't so bad, unless the gym member is doing absolutely horrible things. Nathan, is that you raising your hand? I didn't even know you could do that. I love that.
yeah. I wasn't sure if you meant literal raise your hand or use the feature. But I think like what this book is like incredibly timely, especially on that cult-ish thing where it talks about the gyms, it talks about the multi-level marketing. And I wish it would have gone even further into that and spent even less time on Scientology and the other cults, because it feels like 5 years ago, if you sat down to watch a Netflix documentary, it was only serial killers. That's all it was. And now if you look at the documentaries from like this past year, it's the LuLaRoe, it's the Beanie Babies, it's these like hyped up phenomenons. So this book is really timely because it is that transitory state between the like the true crime love and the like the now love for the ish part of cult. And I think like that's what I love so much about it, because it is kind of this new version of what cult is, because the definition is co-opted into something like completely else. So like for me it's just timely, and especially because I read it, I don't know, like maybe there isn't a difference, but I read it 7-8 months ago. So like even before all these documentaries started coming out, it was a fresh perspective on this issue, which now even seems in the internal, like everyone is always online phase, like, oh, we're now like more familiar with that concept.
And that's interesting too, that was brought up at the end of the book, as far as like the idea of these cult-like leaders now taking the internet. And it made me wonder, how far could some of these leaders have gone? Manson, I feel like, wouldn't have touched it, but like Jim Jones or like even David Koresh, like what could they have done with Instagram? Like, jokes aside, like, if they had access to the internet, we'd be doomed. You know what I mean? So like, because think about how many people died at Jonestown, right? Like how many, that was, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, I think, unaliving of all time. So but now we have these influencers, right? And I actually, by the way, ruined my cookies and my browsing history researching for this meeting. The ads I'm getting
are crazy.
I ruined it. I want to throw, my laptop needs to be thrown away. I'm on a list somewhere, 100%. I'm on a list somewhere. I actually did get
to like, oh, sorry.
I know, I was gonna say, I did get a comment recently on my Scientology or my Can Awareness Network video that I did on my true crime page, where somebody commented, they're like, be careful, girl, they're always watching. And I'm like, I've been on a list. Okay, this is not new. Go ahead, Nathan.
But like, I think like what is interesting is that like the new brands of cults are businesses. Like, like the cult leaders in the past were cults of personality. It was a little commune type thing. It was getting away from things. And now all of these cult things are literal like pop-up businesses, be your own boss type thing. They like revolve around the capitalist institutions instead of like getting away from them.
Right. We still have those commune cults now popping up still, though. I mean, there's a couple of those that are highly controversial, and I actually have some questions about that later, but I was curious. I did want to ask, out of, so the language of cults, right? We have our different leaders who preach different stuff. Obviously, some are more religious than others. Others are just, spewing nonsense. But out of all of the ones that you are aware of, or not necessarily learned in this book, or have at least researched a couple of times, which leader do you think would have got you? Like, which one do you think that you were like, might have fallen for that, might have gotten involved in that? I was curious if anybody had an answer to that.
Who was the woman who like I think she's like still out there. I don't know if she's like considered a cult leader, but she like wears the white flowy outfits and like talks about like spirituality, because she started like showing up on my, and they mentioned her in the book, but she like started showing up on my TikTok feed talking about like empaths and stuff, and I was like, whoa. Like,
I think that's Teal Swan.
Yeah, Teal Swan.
Teal Swan. I went down a rabbit hole with Teal Swan.
I'd never heard of her, and now she's on my TikTok. I'm like, oh no.
I really got angry about her because like on like suicide and death, like it's a gift to yourself, or like
it's
all these things, like, but I was just like, no.
It was just so interesting to see like her come up on my feed, and I'd never, if I hadn't read this book, I never would have heard of her. And it was like the like kind of like, I don't know if anyone else is like on the side of TikTok where it's like you're always getting all these like self-reflection or like mental health or like therapy TikTok. And so it kind of felt like her content fit really naturally in that until you dig into it more. So not that I felt like, oh, I agree with her stuff, but I think she has a good way of kind of just sliding in and you don't really know who she is.
What's interesting about her is I hadn't heard of her before either. I don't really subscribe to any of that content anywhere. But it seems that she's the most popular on YouTube. I think is she's got a bunch of self-help videos, which is fine. I don't care if you do that, watch whatever you want. But the first time I heard about her was in the book, and I was like, "Ooh, she sounds awful." And then like the next day, somebody tagged me on TikTok, one of her videos. And they're like, oh, all I can think about is cultish now. And I was watching the video, and she's at like a conference, like giving like a big pep talk. And all of the comments are just like, oh, she's amazing. She's so powerful. Like, she helps me every day. I watch her every day. And I'm like, but
she's not even licensed or
the same person?
Studied. Yeah.
Which is another thing I wanted to talk about later on, was some of these people just preaching the word and have no idea what they're talking about. Not to respect David Koresh, but he at least knew what he was talking about. Anyway, let's see.
On the MLM topic, I guess my experience with that has been, I certainly know what they are, and how dangerous they can be. Not like threat to your life or anything, but I have a few friends who do things. Like I have a friend who does Pampered Chef, and I'm really glad she does, because their Italian seasoning is the best, and their cookie, their baking things are the best. I mean, it's great, but she's never pressured me in any way, and she's not really that kind of person. So I guess she's not really in it to. It's like a little side hustle for her. It's not like she's. I never felt pressured. She never asked me to do a party. She's always said, anybody wants to do it, great, whatever. And a couple of different things like that, where I've bought things that I've actually really liked and will continue to buy them from those people. But I've never personally had anyone make me feel pressured to have a party or sign up, or anything like that. So I don't know.
I know they're everywhere, but living in the South, I feel like they're.
I do too.
Okay, so I feel like they are rampant. Where are you located again?
I'm in Virginia.
Okay.
But not Northern Virginia, which is almost like a different state. But yeah.
Well, I'm in North Carolina. I'm right below you. I feel like they're everywhere. And I remember distinctly growing up and my mother taking my sister and I to 31 get-togethers and parties and getting Jillian and my sister and I little matching outfits and stuff like that. That was just like something we did growing up, not realizing, what it was, but it was just my mom trying to support her friends, So I still have 31 stuff. I think I have a 31 koozie that I bought from somebody. One of the most fascinating things about Mary Kay, which is like the bigger one, is the pink Cadillac, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with the pink Cadillac, but I distinctly remember somebody that I graduated high school with a couple of years after post-graduation posting about her doing all this amazing stuff, being a boss babe, whatever, and posting a photo of her with this big pink, it's like a baby pink Cadillac SUV, and it looks cool. It's got Mary Kay like instead of Cadillac on it, like it has all those logos and emblems, but it does actually have Mary Kay written on it on the car, like kind of distinctly. But it turns out that you get that car if you do really, really, really well. But if you don't do well after that, all of the car's payments are on you. You own that car now.
Right.
Like that is your car. So I looked it up because I was curious. So qualifying for a pink Cadillac, I got this somewhere off of Google. Qualifying for a pink Cadillac involves purchasing $102,000 worth of Mary Kay goods per calendar year, and maintaining that qualification requires the team to continuously purchase at least $50,000 per quarter of Mary Kay products. That's a lot. That is a lot of products. I mean, Mary Kay isn't cheap from what I remember. I don't think I ever bought anything, but I mean, it seems like one of those high-end brands. That's still a lot of product. My friend Emily said, we went to college together. My mom's friend sells beauty stuff, and let me tell you, their eye cream slaps. Yeah, I mean, some of the products are great. So I thought that I remember the pink Cadillac though, and I was like, I have to look this up.
Mary Kay eye makeup remover. It's the best you'll find anywhere. It's great stuff.
Which is,
I just hate it when like there's the MLMs that claim that their products are going to change your life.
Yeah, that's the cultish part, right? That's the language they start throwing out there.
And so like those I run away from, but I like things like Color Street because like I'm lazy and I have cats and I have to chase them around, so I don't want my nails to like right. And like there's this one activewear brand I can't even like remember the but those aren't saying this is going to change your life and you are going to be a new person.
You have to buy these products.
Like you have to.
Right. That's like the difference between what draws somebody into a cult and who will be drawn in and who won't, right? So I mean, like you're saying, you might buy things from somebody who sells an MLM, but you're doing it because it's something you like.
Yeah.
Right. So certain spices I'll buy from Pampered Chef, sure. Eye makeup remover I'll buy from Mary Kay. I have a fantastic tote bag that I absolutely love from 31,
Yeah.
But I know what I'm doing.
Ralph is like,
and I know where the boundaries are.
Your life is never the same until you put a pair of LuLaRoe leggings on. I'm just telling you.
Never went there. Never went there.
I mean, the way it hugs and tucks and
I think she described them as paper thin.
It changed my life. And listen, I have a business opportunity for all of you. If you really don't, no, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god, I love this. This is the best.
I didn't know that Tupperware was like a thing.
Yeah.
Granted, I'm only
my mom sold Tupperware and did Tupperware parties for a while until like I think she realized it's like, holy shit, this is kind of cultish this is definitely MLM, and she got out of there. So yeah.
That's so I had no idea because you just buy it at the store. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So one of the more interesting things that I learned, it's definitely kind of how we perceive people, I guess, who join these types of organizations, I guess is a better way to call that, because I feel like cult is too broad of a term now. And along with that, brainwashing feels a little bit too broad of a term. And it seems to be a loose term. Thoughts on that? We see it on page 35, and then later in the book, page 237. And it makes me kind of feel bad for like judging people who join cults because it's like, okay, we're all kind of lost. All right, we're all trying to figure out this thing called life. All right, let's give these people a break for maybe wanting to do something that they were promised would be good. You know what I mean? So I that was like the one thing that I definitely I learned, because it's so easy to be like, okay, these branch Davidians have no idea what they're talking about. They're all brainwashed, you know, not just on the Christianity side of things, but in general. Which, by the way, the branch Davidians are still an active cult, still an active compound. There is a new priest, I guess, if you want to call it. Pastor is probably the more appropriate Southern term for it. But I went there. I drove through Waco. We were actually driving through what wouldn't surprise me to be a tornado. It was absolutely monsooning. And so they closed down the compound, but it is now like a burial site, along with Scientology. Waco and the Siege and Ruby Ridge are like some of my favorite things to learn about. So I was really wanting to see it. I will go back to Waco eventually. But yeah, anyway, I love discussing and talking about Waco.
Me too.
It's so fascinating. And I actually was just gifted a couple of books. I've got a book on Ruby Ridge and a book on Waco, which I absolutely love. Another comment said, all smiles, said they just want a better life and get swept up in the hype. They're all manipulated. They are manipulated though. Absolutely. And I think especially when it comes to groups that are on a compound, or groups that are on a commune, or groups that you're spending most of your money on, specifically like Scientology.
Yeah.
It's nearly impossible to leave at that point. And at that point, especially specifically Scientology, we'll just say, we'll just name one. It's you've defected most of your family, and it's near impossible to go back to people who you've pushed away for years, and you're probably, you know, it's really unfortunate. So the brainwashing part of this was definitely fascinating. And I think the person on page 35 that was talking about brainwashing, hi, welcome, talking about brainwashing was actually related to somebody who perished in Jonestown, if I'm not mistaken. And I think I flagged her book because I was like, oh yeah, I want to know what you have to say. I could be wrong about that, but we shall see. Yeah, there's literally so many book recommendations in this. I love it. I was like, I'm gonna start tabbing these. Yeah, it's a Jonestown inspired novel, it says. So maybe it's something along the lines of a fiction story based off of it. But I did think that was interesting. And yes, not even just Branch Davidians. There's a couple of other groups that are, hi, Meg. Hi, welcome. A couple of other groups that are still active. I was curious and looked up the Heaven's Gate website. And funny enough,
that's a fascinating one.
Not funny, but interestingly enough, they have a whole thing about anti-suicide. And I think you can, gosh, there was so many. Oh, that's actually something else that I wanted to talk to you about. I have so many tabs open. I also found the Heaven's Gate Reddit subreddit. And it says, do you believe that Marshall Applewhite believed in what he taught? And there was a couple of other people asking, like, do you believe Marshall White? And there were people saying, yes, absolutely. The Heaven's Gate one is fascinating. And I know the book mentioned it, but I did look that up as well. On eBay, you can get the Nike shoes, like at least similar ones, for about $4,000 if anybody's just looking to throw a dollar away.
No, thanks.
People were saying it was his own self-hatred, his, you know, having to hide his homosexuality. It's a fascinating little subreddit that is very active still. Let's see. Yeah, the website is still up. It is got everything on it. If you want to know like their mission, if you would like to know anything else, that's all there. One of the other things that I ran into an issue with, not necessarily with this book, but I can't seem to find the exact answer on what exactly happened on those white nights. It's in Jonestown at the People's Temple down in South America, because it seems like
everybody had a different perspective.
It seems like everybody had a different perspective, and our author was saying that these nights weren't really what we thought they were. And I was like, I don't know, because everybody is saying one thing, but this book is the only source that I have found that has said these were not practicing suicide missions or unaliving missions, excuse me. But I don't know. I had a bit of an issue with that. And also on page 63, it says this event sparked the infamous quote unquote unaliving. Contrary to popular belief, the tragedy wasn't premeditated, at least not how the press painted it to be. And most of the victims did not die voluntarily. That's true. We know that. Popular Jonestown coverage spun a story that Jones regularly hosted ghoulish unaliving rehearsals known as White Nights, where his mind-controlled minions would line up like lobotomized communicants and swallow cups of punch in preparation for the real unaliving on November 18th, 1978. But this isn't what happened at all. So the word that got me was premeditated, though, because the next couple of pages, literally the next page, page 65, she has a little star and asterisk at the bottom. Where and when did Jones get all that cyanide? According to a CNN report, he'd been secretly stockpiling this stuff for years, preparing for the day he'd need to use it whenever that might be. Allegedly, Jones obtained a jeweler's license in order to purchase the chemical, which can be used to clean gold. That sounds a little premeditated to me.
Yeah, it does.
That sounds like he
does.
was preparing for that. You know what I mean? So that was one of the bigger specific gripes, I guess, I had with this book, where I was like, I don't really know how I feel about that. And I was doing more research on what happened during these White Nights. Loudspeakers all over the you guys can see my screen, right? Is it sharing properly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. He'd tape what he said and then play it back all day long. That's super creepy. White night, get to the pavilion, run, your lives are in danger. That's so weird. And then this website, nope, that's Waco still. This website, jonestown.sdsu.edu. I don't know what school that is. But yeah, another website that claims these White Nights were practicing and seeing how loyal his people were to him. So that's just one of the things that I found. One of the other questions I had was about Teal Swan. Yeah, it's so interesting. I literally knew nothing about her until this book. So one of the things we briefly touched on it earlier, was some of these leaders seem to be blatantly disrespectful. What is it about this language that we're learning about here, right? This language that's encouraging and almost enticing to people to join. On page 258, there's a quote that literally says, verbal abuse is a necessary part of the spiritual path, and that questioning it simply reflects the lowly human's limited, opinionated mind. I might have misquoted that. Lowly human. I don't think that's right. But that was about the guy that we learned later on, which was kind of our influencer guy. I don't even know how to say his Bentinho Mazzaro, who had the all-fail retreat out in Sedona. Correct? Yes, Sedona. So, and another one that we heard about recently. Oh, where's she at? What was her name? I don't have anything bad on my laptop, I promise you guys. The Love Has Won cult, right? This lady that recently was found deceased and like gray and then wrapped in Christmas lights. But interestingly enough about her is if you watch her videos, she is so mean. She is yelling at people and verbally abusing people. And that's like what it takes to be on this spiritual journey. So I just was curious about your thoughts. I see a hand. I love that. I didn't know you could do that. Okay, go ahead, Ralph.
Live in Seattle. I don't know if you ever heard of Mark Driscoll or Mars Hill Church out here, but it was, this giant mega church out here that in hindsight, there was a huge podcast that came out last year about it, the Several Part podcast, and there's been several others that have cropped up, that Driscoll was extremely abusive to people verbally and just horrible, just really, really terrible, and would even do it from the pulpit. And yet there were 17 to 25,000 people attending all of his churches and all his campuses. And even when the church was collapsing and falling, there were people still standing by this guy. So here it is in like a typical quote unquote Christian evangelical American Western church. And there were people who were like, so that's what he does. He's just speaking the truth and this. So it's frightening that someone that verbally abusive and abrasive, he still has a following. He just basically packed up his wagons and went to Arizona and he's doing the same thing down there. And it's just as bad.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard of that one. I live near a Driscoll, though. I did for a while.
I'm so sorry.
Interesting. I haven't heard that last name in a while. Yeah, I haven't. There's just so many of those little pockets out there, right? Too. That's just it's weird. And there's a lot of people that subscribe to that.
Well, see, anything. I'm kind of like we've been having a conversation in a chat that almost like anything can become a cult in some way, shape, or form. And I think it can happen, especially when you're tying it in with people's religious beliefs or their moral beliefs or whatever. It's kind of frightening.
What I was thinking when I was reading this is like, have I created a cult? Is the book club kind of cultish?
But we're willing participants.
Yeah, but so were the Branch Davidians, Ralph. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that the whole time. I was like, wait a minute. People are like paying to be a part of this.
I did wish, though, for to that point, like for more of a strict definition of what a cult was, or like when did a cult become bad? Like, I think there's so many, like what we were just saying, there's so many kind of innocuous cults that it's like we are all here voluntarily. So is it even fair to use the word? And like, I understood like where she was coming from in the introduction of like, it's hard to pin it down, and that's part of why they're so mysterious and fascinating and elusive. But like in the like examination of the language, I wish that she had been a little bit more concrete about what are we looking at when we're examining all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were a few things that I wish went in depth a little bit more. But I've found that with every book too, and I feel so bad because I'm like, okay, what do you want this author to do? Sorry, Allison, I saw you had your hand raised. If you want to go ahead.
You're good. It was just going to be about how you were talking about the mean language and the usage. I was just going to say that was one thing that we talked about in my college course about, and she touches on it a little bit, but that's one of the things I wish she would have talked about more, is that in-group, out-group complex of like trying to create this like idea that like the in-group is like what you want to be a part of, and the out-group, like you're a loser. And part of the reason that we talked about in the class, which I'm not saying it's factual, but like in the class, we talked about how the leaders would use this really mean language to try and make you feel like an idiot if you didn't agree with them. So it was trying to make you feel dumb and automatically put you in this out group. So you had to kind of fight to be in the in group. You were fighting to be part of like the meanness. And like, I remember learning that and being like, that just can't be true though. Like that doesn't make any sense. But in the chat box, we were talking a little bit about how like, if we're talking about like a modern day cult that like I can personally relate to as a college student, I feel like sororities are kind of cults in a way, because you're paying and you're,
our ceremonies and everything, like definitely.
Yeah, no offense if you're in one, but like sorority girls are like, the stereotype is that they're mean, but like they're all pretty and they all get along with each other, and like you kind of want to be a part of it. So like it kind of works. Like when you think about like that smaller example of it, less severe, because if you're talking about like Jim Jones being mean, like from an outsider, like, oh, I wouldn't fall for that. But like on a smaller scale, we kind of are, not we, but like people are falling for it, of like, you want to be part of it, because even though they're mean, like you feel left out, you feel like an idiot for not being a part of it. So
yeah. And I think there was a little bit of that in the text in the book we read about like that us versus them mentality. Like the outsiders are the bad guys, and they don't know what they're talking about, or specifically like if we were to think of it in a religious context, like they're evil, you know what I mean? which it makes you feel like you have an in, like it makes you like kind of feel good that you're a part of something finally that accepts you and that you understand. And there are people out there who are bozos that just don't get it, you know what I mean? So I think that was explained a little bit, but I now I feel like I need to reread it. I feel like I'm missing parts of this. Like I read all of this like in the span of over the month, but I still feel like I'm forgetting stuff. Every time I get to the book club, my brain's like, you remember we read a book? And yet I have all these tabs. Oh my gosh. So the confession, the Children of God cult, I don't know a whole lot about that. But my God, what I did learn in this book, horrifying. Okay, horrifying. I have these things that I draw like little red flags. I showed this before, but I literally draw like a little red flag in the text. And I think she kind of goes into this at the end too, as far as like make sure that if you were to subscribe to something, do your research and like kind of have like a somewhat of a gut feeling if things go bad.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Children of God was just off the rails. Red flag number 1, calling a cult leader a father. Calling somebody father that is not your own. Very weird. Okay. 2, man calling himself prophet. Also, can we just go into the fact that most of these things were created by white men?
Yeah.
Ralph is just like, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're terrible. We're the worst. I'm so sorry.
No.
We're the
But
worst.
it was just interesting. Not
It's
even
very true.
Not even that though, but like the MLMs, like a lot of these companies are like big, rich white men, which I guess is the only, rich is the only way you're going to be able to start these type of corporations. But I found that interesting. Okay, so Emily also said, oh no, I started typing back to Emily. I don't want to do that. Not on here. I think it's tapping into society's overall frustration that welcomes the verbal abuse as honesty. Absolutely. Frustration with politics, with change, with capitalism, all of it. Totally get that, Emily. Totally. Okay, let's see. What other questions did I have? I had some like basic questions, like if there's anything else you could ask the author, what would you ask her? And then we kind of answered some topics on if you would read something else by her. I think she has another book called Word Slut. I think. Yeah, Word Slut. A Feminist Guide to Taking Back the English Language. Doesn't really seem like something I would read.
Yeah,
I
it
think she has a
doesn't sound.
podcast. I think Amanda Montell has a podcast. Let's see. Cults being still active. Blatant disrespect. Oh, and something I think it was you, Skylar, that mentioned Teal Swan not having a background in like this knowledge, and we kind of saw more of that later on. Along with the last, okay, some gurus or leaders don't actually have a background in these topics, yet people are fully committed. Is this language or luck? Okay, page 267 I have marked. And I think we were learning about Massaro again. Indeed, a quick probe reveals that Dispenza never graduated. Oh, this is a different guy. This is a guy who was, oh goodness, what is his first name? Where are you? Dr. Joe Dispenza, a generic-looking middle-aged white guy, who well over 1 million Instagram followers somehow trust as their new age sage. Dispenza's army of adoring acolytes claim he's helped them manifest everything from their dream job to their spouse to their cancer remission. That's so dangerous. Like I see that a lot too on like parts of TikTok of people doing tarot readings. Like they don't discuss like pregnancies and like health. Like that's just don't touch it. Like that's bad. Okay. Dispenza shrewdly exploits SEO and other web marketing strategies to make millions selling an extravagant emporium of self-help workshops and retreats. Gross. Public speaking engagements, corporate consultations, guided medication, CDs, gifts, and books like Becoming Supernatural and Evolve Your Brain. Anyway, so on the next page it says, indeed, a quick probe reveals that Dispenza never graduated from Rutgers and has no PhD, like he was claiming. His only diplomas include a general Bachelor of Science, from Evergreen State College and a degree from a chiropractic school in Georgia called Life University. That's sorry. That sounds like that doesn't sound like a chiropractic school. And yet
No.
Google Dispenza's credentials and his exceptionally well optimized web presence will provide the top result. Dr. Joe Dispenza is a well-known neuroscientist. As a white man in his 50s, just the kind of guy our culture wants a neuroscientist to look and sound like. He is largely trusted without question. I'm sorry, I'm laughing so much. Also it mentions Heather Hoffman, activation vibration. I looked her up too. She has a very interesting Instagram. But again, on the topic of these people don't even really know what they're talking about, yet they're getting so much. I was shocked with how young this girl was. This chick is young. And then I this happened to me a lot in the book where I would make a note like, oh, I wish she would go deeper into this, and then I would just read the next paragraph like after making the note and she would go into it. So I was researching this chick, and then I realized she did mention 20-something woman. Yeah, this girl is very young and she's verified and she's got hundreds of thousands of, I think 176,000 followers. Yes. Cosmic channel, spiritual, intuitive, reincarnated to remind and activate. Run for the hills. But a lot of the comments are other verified accounts, which I found interesting. But again, same with Teal Swan, a lot of those comments were just so empowering, being touched by it all. Illuminati. Sorry, that was so loud. Wait a minute.
So like kind of going back to Teal Swan, like in my rabbit hole adventure, like she claimed to be the reincarnate of like two different people. Like one was like some sort of guru. Yeah, I can't even say words today. And then like the reincarnate of something else, and it was like, and she said she was from the star named, I don't know, it started with an A, I think, and it was just off the wall. You would think this person, like, she is actually like crazy, like.
Yeah, I mean, I get, part of me is like, yeah, I get this. I get why people subscribe to this, and I understand why people subscribe to this. I haven't watched any of her videos. I don't want it to play anything, so I'll just go out of that. Sorry, I got freaked out because I literally I hit this picture and the first comment is Illuminati Congo.
Yeah.
I got a message recently asking if I wanted to join the Illuminati, and I feel like I've made it. I feel like I've finally gotten to my highest point in life. If somebody from the Illuminati messages you. Thought is the trickster. Oh, this is fascinating. Oh man, I'm in a rabbit hole now, boys. Okay. Yikes. All right, well, do your thing. I did want to give a shameless plug to my friend Emily, who did a fantastic video on the Love Has Won cult. She did this massive deep dive into it. If anybody is curious, I can put it on our page, or I could put it in the chat.
That'd be awesome.
She does a couple of videos like this, and they're just amazing. Emily's great. This one though, it helped me learn a lot because I had no idea what was happening. Specifically on this woman, the Love Has Won. And I think the autopsy just came out with this one, and she did just die from alcohol poisoning, I'm pretty sure. I discovered that the gold-based Church of Scientology has a Yelp, 1 star. And I think these are pretty funny.
Oh Lord.
I'm telling y'all, I went to the depths of the internet. Very high price. The golf course is lame. Like, I think that's a troll. I don't know. So the questions like this, right? And we talked about this at the beginning too, where I mentioned that I just feel like it took a lot of prior knowledge about cults and kind of what they teach before reading this text. Because I was literally Googling stuff like this. Okay, what exactly? I knew about Heaven's Gate. I've read into it. I've done videos on it, but I didn't know exactly what Marshall Applewhite was trying to prove? What was he doing, right? And I just feel like if it, even at the bottom of the book where she had like these little asterisks where it was discussing like just little tidbits of information, give us like a little section where it's just like, here is the elevator pitch of Heaven's Gate. You know what I mean? So I learned a lot with this. Did not know that he believed he was an extraterrestrial. Came to Earth, was killed, and bodily rose from the dead before being transported onto a spaceship. So picture the Bible and Jesus, except for going into a spaceship. Jesus was a gateway to heaven, but had found humanity unready to ascend when he first came to Earth. And again, a lot of people still subscribe to this. This is still a very active organization. Somebody on Instagram just got a Heaven's Gate tattoo recently that I saw. Oh, here's a pink Cadillac. That's what that thing looks like. Yeah, that thing is wild.
Gosh.
Oh, there we go. That was my source on the. Oh, I love this. Is Mary Kay a pyramid scheme? No, Mary Kay is not a pyramid scheme. It's a legitimate cosmetic company with a history of providing quality beauty products to their customers. Although recruiting salespeople is crucial to other multi-level marketing companies, Mary Kay consultants can make money without recruiting others. Sure. But one thing that I found interesting too was like the whole thing with MLMs is really urging people that you could work from home. And I'm like, what has like the whole country been supposed to be doing the past couple of years? How has COVID affected the MLM industry? And apparently it's been booming. So
yeah, I have a coworker who she started like selling Scentsy and is another person that sells Color Street and like is having, I swear every week I get an invitation to some party that she's hosting of like another MLM, and it like Arbonne she did once, Pampered Chef, like several other ones, and it's just like, how
this
like,
also was interesting. Sorry, go ahead, finish your thoughts, Skylar.
Oh no. And so yeah, I think, and I've noticed I've had more invitations to like these kind of parties through, and like seen friends sign up for them more so during the pandemic than before.
Right. Yeah. And I think this Time article is, I'll send this to y'all as well. This is fascinating. Boop. I haven't gotten any, well, I do get strange DMs all the time, but not a lot of MLMs recently, only the Illuminati. One of the things that was about LuLaRoe, and there was like an active lawsuit happening against the state of Washington. Apparently there was an update post publish of the book. They paid $4.75 million. I don't know if this was included in the documentary about I'm saying it wrong. Am I? No, LuLaRoe. There was a documentary that just came out about this recently. I don't know if this is like in that and people are aware of this, but there was an update. Also, Amway actually like markets themselves as a MLM. Like if you Google Amway, it says they're a multi-level marketing company. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you could. I thought that was illegal. Like I didn't know you could actually like market yourself as such. Their website is scary. It's got, I mean, look at this picture. It has literally so much happening. You have makeup, you have a pomegranate, you've got this like recharge drink, face mist, and I'm like, what are you selling me? I'm so confused. Yeah, the ads that I've been getting. It's so funny too. I mentioned this in the last meeting when we were discussing Cultish, like about in the last meeting we were like, okay, so the next book we're going to be reading is Cultish. Very excited. Here's my cult story. I am curious if anybody has a cult story, but what's interesting about the cookies and stuff and like browsing history is whenever I was at an old job, we had somebody bring in something that they needed repaired. And while they bring in something that needs repaired, I have to get all their information. I need their name, I need their phone number, email, insurance card if they have it, stuff like that. So this guy comes in and brings in this busted bike, and he's like, I don't have any information. Just call. If you need me, call this number. And I was like, okay. So I call, and immediately they're like, Scientology Celebrity Center of Hollywood, how can I help you? And I shit my pants. I was like, I'm looking for Patrick. I don't remember his name. And they were like, who's this? And I was like, oh no. I'm this person. I have this, and I'm looking for this. Apparently he's the chef there. He was like the head chef of Scientology. He's probably still there. You can't leave, so he's probably still there. And that's the only way I could contact him. But every time I called the Celebrity Center Hollywood Scientology, they would always ask, who is this? What do you need? And I'm like, oh my God, oh, I'm sorry. But after that, every single ad I was getting on YouTube to play music and stuff, Scientology. Are you curious? Join, like, go to this website, Scientology. So I'm like, oh my God, please leave me alone. So scary. Because they're everywhere. And what's interesting too about the language that we were learning in the book is like you could tell when somebody is a Scientologist. I couldn't point that out ever because I just don't listen for that kind of stuff. But apparently, like, there's certain lingo and stuff would make it red flags all around. Here is the Branch Davidians website, which I found fascinating. So yeah, there's actually people who were released from prison recently in the from the Branch Davidians compound who did not perish in the fire and were arrested that day of the siege, that are out and still are attached to the church and do believe that David Koresh is going to be reincarnated. He's going to be coming back because he was the prophet. And then I think this is our guy. This is our new, Charles. Don't remember his last name. Pace. Charles Pace is our new pastor of the Branch Davidians. Yeah, this place was wild. I really want to go back and see it. This guy, the Moonies, didn't know a whole lot about that one either, and I had to Google it. Look at this guy. This is hilarious. Be ready to die for Trump in a gunfight with police. Church built by two of the Rev Moon's sons is locked, loaded for the Lord. Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's terrifying.
Okay. Oh my God. Look at this. I didn't even really look too far into this. Are they all raising some type of weapon in the air? Look at this. Holy shit.
Totally not on topic, but this like I just read something today about like Trump, he just came out and said that like if he's reelected, that he's going to pardon all the people involved in the like January 6th like insurrection because they're being treated badly.
Oh, of course.
So,
well, they're locked and loaded for the Lord, it looks like. But again, I wanted more on like this type of stuff. Like I think she gave like a brief description on these, but anyway, I'm just going through and trying to remember what all I kept open. People are talking about the millennial guru. People are releasing articles about that Sedona trip. In Cultish 2, I want a chapter on toxic stan culture, extreme fandoms, which I think she mentioned. That is true. Anyone who's tweeted negatively at Taylor Swift knows they silence people better than Scientology. Yeah, that was briefly mentioned about like the Swifties. Yeah, I mean, I think this was a palatable read. Somebody mentioned that at the beginning. This was definitely an interesting read and an easy read. But again, maybe just like a little bit, I don't know, because I don't feel like anything in this book was unnecessary per se. But I do wish there was just like maybe 100 pages more, not that many, 50 pages more of just information about certain topics like that she brought up or backgrounds on these cults. So who is this? Oh, this is the guy. This is the guy we mentioned earlier, the one that was very who claims that verbal abuse is necessary. He was supposed to be arrested, but he was not. And he, as you could tell, this is his website. He is still actively. Oh, I never saw his face. Terrifying. Yikes. Oh no. Okay, so as you could tell,
he's still very active on Instagram.
Say that one more time.
Oh.
He's still very active on Instagram also.
Oh my God.
I hadn't heard his name before this book. I looked him up and there's still a lot of stuff recent.
One of the things, I'll have to look him up. One of the things I think was mentioned in this book, I don't remember if it was about him specifically, but one of the things about it's a gateway book, definitely made me want to take deeper dives. Yeah, same. It definitely it's weird to kind of think of these gurus and the MLMs as like comparable in any way, shape, or form to these larger organizations, specifically Scientology, that don't treat their people well at all. But stuff like this, like on this page I'm sharing right now, where you pay for these classes, that's exactly what Scientology does. That is exactly, you pay to purchase these books and you pay to get all this information. It's so fascinating that she found this correlation, in my opinion. And I'm just now going through the website. I was only at the what is happening in there? I just showed you all my messages. Hi, friends. It's fine. It's nothing crazy. I was just gonna tell my boyfriend to turn down whatever he was playing. Okay, I will stop that. Okay. Let me text him really quick. Okay, we're kind of we do these for like an hour and a half, and I typically just go on tangents. But I was curious if anybody had any stories they wanted to share. I mean, obviously we get messages by MLMs all the time. And let's see. Okay. I think I got through all the questions that I really wanted to ask. So yeah, if anybody had any fun cult stories they wanted to share, or if they wanted to end on any notes, let me know what else you guys wanted to say, if anything. I do appreciate everybody being here. I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Totally unrelated. But I know you had recommended a book called Girl One, and I think I told you I didn't normally read that kind of book, but I might because you recommended it so highly.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Oh, I'm so glad. Oh my gosh, I'm so
you
glad.
broadened my horizons.
Oh
That's
my goodness.
exciting.
Oh, I love to hear that. Yeah, Girl One was fantastic, and it
was good.
I really enjoyed that. Oh, I'm so glad. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one of my other favorite book talk creators commented on my live and CCB reading. Sierra said, "I'm in CrossFit and was completely shocked when they were mentioned in the book." So I want to know more about what you'd say. What do you think about that? And if like I mean, obviously you don't have to tell us your like life story and like what you've experienced. What have you experienced in CrossFit? This is turning into therapy. But yeah, if you have any stories, I'd love to hear them. Yeah, I mean, I personally though with CrossFit, I just had a couple of people wanting me to join. Just it didn't sound like anything sinister, but it was kind of strange the way they approached it, where they were like, join us, you can be one of us, it's so much fun, we beat the shit out of you, so other than other than my Scientology story, I really don't have any other stories about cults. But I'm so glad you enjoyed Girl One. Okay, my mind's going back and forth. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, I love when I recommend books and people actually enjoy them and don't come back to me thinking I'm crazy. But yeah.
Patricia, do you have a good recommendation on a good Ruby Ridge book that you've read? That you're like, because that's one that I feel like I know a lot about, but then I'm always finding things. It's like, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that either. So, do you have one that kind of goes like one of your favorites that takes a deep?
Yes. Give me one quick second though. 1 second. 1 second. So there's a couple of different, I'll say this, Ralph. There's a couple of different perspectives you can read about as far as Ruby Ridge goes, which I'm sure you assumed.
Go on.
Well, let's just say, I mean, okay, so Ruby Ridge was like a really big Sierra did say the owner recently changed it to a functional fitness gym to remove himself from the stigma. Interesting, which is kind of like what you were saying, Skylar. So Ruby Ridge definitely has that division of who's the good guy and who's the bad guy here, and you definitely you could read from both of those perspectives if you would like, where it's like from the people who were there protesting the FBI to people who were a part of the FBI. I will say it's not a book on Ruby Ridge, but Gary Nozner's book, he actually wasn't there during Ruby Ridge, but he heard about it, of course. Gary Nozner is actually the FBI negotiator that we learn about through Waco. If you've watched the show Waco, he was played by Michael Shannon. That guy.
Yes. Okay.
So Stalling for Time by Gary Nozner is very fascinating if you want to learn from like FBI perspective, but there are certain perspectives that I maybe would not recommend.
There's different perspectives, but
yeah,
there's different perspectives, but at the same time, I think no matter what perspective you're coming from, there was a lot of unnecessary stuff and people were killed that didn't need to die. It was handled badly. It was handled badly, no matter what.
Totally. Yeah. It's, I was in college at the time when a lot of this happened, when Ruby Ridge kind of led to Wake. It was happening so quickly at a time in my life when there was so much going on that it wasn't until much later that I truly was able to kind of go take a step back and try to figure out exactly what happened. And it was a big mess.
I'm definitely team ATF shot first, but the Ruby Ridge, Ruby Ridge one is pretty intense, and I do know that Gary Nozner does go into detail about it on the book in his book Stalling for Time, which again is just a fascinating read. But the book that was just gifted to me recently was this one by Jess Walter. I haven't read it all the way through, so I feel bad even recommending it because I don't know how great it is, but from what I have read, it is very interesting and it provides a lot of information about the situation at Ruby Ridge.
Well, feel free to ping me once you're done with it and let me know what you think. So
I definitely want to get to it very soon because I just really enjoy reading about this kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, there was a book that I saw at a McKay's recently, a used bookstore, about Ruby Ridge, but it definitely seemed to be maybe a perspective that wouldn't subscribe to all of our political stances, I guess is the best way I'm trying to put that. So as far as, I mean, we know that Ruby Ridge was just absolutely a train wreck. So was Waco Siege. And what was also interesting about Cultish was she kind of, I don't know how true this was, but it was saying they handled the Waco Siege the way they did because they didn't want another Jonestown. But I don't feel like that's accurate. I feel like they didn't want another Ruby Ridge.
Right. Yeah. That's more like it. Yep.
So that's another thing that I remembered. Yeah, I was hoping I wasn't incorrect about that because Jonestown happened like 15 years before the siege? Something like
of course, Tim McVeigh used Ruby Ridge and Waco as his excuse for bombing
Oklahoma City bombing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it just seemed it was a domino thing.
It was like three
that just happened in the 90s.
Which
huge.
Even Randy Weaver was appalled that Timothy McVeigh would blame that on what happened at Ruby Ridge. So I know that the family was not supportive of that at all. So Timothy McVeigh was definitely well beyond what anyone involved in Ruby Ridge was thinking. I mean, he was just crazy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's something that was portrayed also in the Waco show that I thought was done very well. Was them reacting to Ruby Ridge and then kind of seeing how bad the government was and stuff like that. But it was just obviously I don't think I was alive. If I was very tiny. But the domino effect is the best way to put it. But I will get to this very soon because I'm very curious. That, and I got another book off of Pango Books recently called The Program, which is about Nixium. Did not go much into detail about it, and this book is mentioned once or twice. It's more that's one of those more recent cults too that we didn't even really get into because I forgot it was mentioned in the book until I looked over at my shelf and saw the program. There's a lot of books on that as well, but I figured that was a good start. So this is like the best one. I mean, if you go back, I think I just typed in Ruby Ridge, and there was like a bunch of books that came up. Paleface Lie. I didn't think that was that one. I don't think it's about Ruby Ridge.
It's not. I read that book.
That one's just about another cult, though, right? I'm pretty sure.
Not exactly, but we live on an Indian reservation. It's not a bad read. I read a Ruby Ridge book. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I might have
you know what? I
look.
think it was no. This is a show. I'm trying to think of the one that I saw at the Sarah Weaver story. Is she naked? No. Trying to oh my goodness, words. I swear to God, ever since I had COVID, y'all, I feel like I've become dumber and dumber by the day. I don't even remember what I was talking about. I'm great at this. Totally should have started a book club.
That one that Sarah Weaver was the oldest daughter.
Yeah, that survived, right?
Yeah, she was standing right next to her mother when her mother got shot in the face. Yes.
Oh,
I do.
She was 16.
Oh, here, let me. Yeah, she was very young. Oh, geez.
She was 16 years old, so she remembers it very well.
This is the other book by Gary Nozner. As you can see, it's got the Waco siege on the cover. Yeah, he wasn't at. It's portrayed actually in the Waco show that Paramount did. It is portrayed that he was there and like helping negotiate because they brought in another guy. That wasn't the case. He was actually on vacation.
Yeah,
he was the one who negotiated the Waco siege and got David Koresh on TV to talk about his word. And then once he saw people's reaction to it, that's when everything went south. Anyway, so that's all I have for recommendations. I wish I had more, but it just seems like there's a ton on Ruby Ridge. Yeah, that one was wild. Now I'm gonna go through a loop or a rabbit hole of gurus. Oh my God, are they together? Oh wait, I thought that was him for a second. Okay. So thank you again for being here. I really appreciate it. This has been
thank you.
And again, about an hour and a half. This is like what I like. I really do appreciate you guys being here. As you know, next month we are reading From Here to Eternity. Not all of the covers look like this. I've never seen another cover like this. I don't know why mine looks like this, but I've been tempted to buy another copy because this is the only book that I've cracked the spine on, and it actually hurts my soul. So I'm considering buying a whole ass another copy because I cracked the spine. But this one's fun. I'm very excited. This is the only Caitlin Doughty book I have not read. If you have not read any of her books, she has just fantastic books and a memoir about just death. She's a mortician, and I think her YouTube is called it's something along the lines of being a mortician, but it's talking death and talking about how we need to be more death positive in a way, not along the lines of like, you know, Teal Swan or whatever her name was, but along the lines of like preparation. And one of the bigger things too that I learned recently was death doulas. We have birth doulas or whatever, just doulas. We actually also have death doulas who prepare families, not only they have people who bring life into the world, and then people who help kind of accept that a family member is dying. So, but anyway, this one specifically is more so just going around the world and talking to different cultures about how they handle it. And I mentioned in a video I did a little while ago, but she actually goes to my alma mater. She goes to Cullowhee, North Carolina, very small town in the middle of the mountains, nowhere in North Carolina, where Western Carolina University is. So very excited to read more about that. Western Carolina is one of the I don't know how many, but it's one of the only schools in the nation that has a body farm where forensic anthropologists in training, I guess students, can study bodies. And it is my one regret in life that I did not study forensics when I was at Western, and for some reason became a film student. So here we are hosting a book club and back in North Carolina. So yeah, very excited for that. I'm going to go ahead and post a poll for our next couple of books. We have 18 Tiny Deaths in March. But yeah, we'll start on this soon, and then check back on the website for more information. And again, follow on Instagram. I post like stuff periodically about the book throughout the reading process up until the day we discuss it. But yeah, also really wanting to know, I really wanting to know what you guys are kind of thinking about the book club and what exactly can be done differently. You guys have, it's literally just the Morbidly Curious Book Club at Gmail. If you would like to give some recommendations, I'd love to hear what you guys had to say. Again, I appreciate all you guys for being here. I will upload this very soon, and we'll be posting about death on Instagram. So come for a good time on my Instagram.
Hey. Thank you again, Patricia.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.